Hello, everyone. I'm Radicoon, but you can just call me Rad, and it's my pleasure to have here with me Flap, who will hopefully, with the power of your donations, be running any percent warps in Dust and Elysian Tale later tonight. Welcome in, Flap, and thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Rad, thanks for interviewing me, and hopefully that incentive does get met.
I sure hope so. So let's dive right in. I guess, unless I'm mistaken, Dust is the only game I see on your speedrun.com profile, and so I'm curious what got you into speedrunning and why did you pick Dust as the first game?
You're not mistaken, Dust is indeed my only game. Um, my speedrunning comes from watching a run of Glover that my friend sent me a long while back, and like that was like my introduction to speedrunning, and it was I believe a GDQ run, and so that like introduced me to GDQs, and as time went on and I watched more and more of them, I kind of was like I want to speedrun myself. And when I was like kind of trying to decide on a game, like Dust was just what I picked because the category that I run is relatively short, and Dust is just one of my favorite games.
Awesome. If unless I'm mistaken, your tuber is also a Nimbat from the game, correct?
Correct. It is the most important Nimbat fidget.
That's awesome. It's always interesting to see like the games we love kind of bring us into these communities, and then we find new ways to enjoy them. So that's so cool. Um, so at the risk of having you kind of re-explain what you might already want to explain during the run, I'm curious about that warps part. Can you talk a little bit about why it's called any percent warps?
Sure. Um, the main categories that you'll see like on speedrun.com are warps and warpless. The glitch essentially will let you go anywhere you want on the maps, assuming you like have the zone unlocked. You do it by like using dual inputs from your mouse and controller, and like having it sent like having your map centered somewhere and then like clicking and holding and then pressing A and you can warp pretty much anywhere. There's some caveats to it that'll lead you to being stuck in a void or just crashing the game. That shouldn't happen during the run.
Fingers crossed, right? Okay. It's a very short run for a game that's typically casually like 10 plus hours, right?
hmm
And so I'm assuming it has a lot of tricks and skips. Is there anything in particular of all the tricks that you're going to do in this run that you're worried about doing live?
There's a couple of things. The primary one is very early in, uh, when you have to skip a cutscene for a power-up pickup. Like in this game, you can skip pretty much any cutscene. Um, this one is just too important and you can't. One of the functions of the game is if you click off of it, it will pause. And we exploit that by as soon as you pick up the power up, you click off the game to pause it, and that will give you a different pause menu, which will then let you skip the cutscene. It's close to frame perfect, if not frame perfect, so that's my biggest concern.
All right, well, here's hoping that goes well. On the other side of the coin, what are you really excited about showing off? What's a trick that you just like cannot wait to do live?
So there's a couple of great boss fight strategies. One is in chapter 2 against Lady Tethys. You just kind of turn her off. And then in chapter 3, you have the old bag of bones, Kane. Um, in the strat we use just kind of trivializes a relatively difficult fight.
Awesome. I cannot wait to see that. So, um, like we mentioned, Dust is the only game on your speedrun.com profile. What's next for you? Are you interested in continuing to grind down this category, picking up another Dust category, or looking at another game altogether?
A little bit of both. My main goal with Dust is to get something like a sub 17. I mean, world record would be great, but my end goal at the very least would be sub 17. And beyond Dust, I've been debating between Ori and the Blind Forest or Tunic.
Well, I am biased. We would love to have you in the tuna community. I will caveat the run is difficult, but this is not about me. This is about you. Thank you so much for being here, Flav. We're excited to have you. Thank you so much for helping us raise money for Trans Lifeline. And I'm personally just very excited to see this run. I know you will do great.
All right, awesome.
Hello again, everyone. Rad here, and it is my pleasure to have here with me New, who will be running Sonic Heroes later tonight. Welcome, New, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, New, what got you into speedrunning? And please tell me where Sonic Heroes fits into that.
I first got into speedrunning about a decade ago, not like actually doing speedruns, but finding speedrun content on Twitch. Because I play a lot of Sonic games, and one of my favorites is Unleashed, which I like watching content for because it's just such an interesting game. So I did find speedrunner on there that I'm good friends with now and has actually introduced me a lot into speedrunning culture and the community and that. And yeah, so I was very interested in it for a while. Practiced ILs and some run stuff, but I didn't have the equipment for it proper. So for the longest time, I wasn't actually like a part of the community. But around the release of Colors Ultimate, which a year ago at this point, it was I had a good working computer. I could play the game on there. I thought, you know what? I will see about getting into the speedrun community there. And yeah, that's kind of where I got my start, just playing through that game. And after my time with that, I was actually able to grab a capture card. So I was able to start running Unleashed and that. And then after my time with that, I actually got into Heroes, which is pretty radically different between those games. But I'm kind of known around the community as not like being the biggest adventure fan. Not that I hate those games, but it's just they're not my preferred like Sonic games. And but Heroes is really different in terms of like movement, just like everything about the game. And also it's a very streamlined run. It's very fun and I very much enjoy it. So yeah, that Heroes is kind of the one that I'm learning now and playing. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, speaking of movement tech, there are two subcategories in Heroes, limited text selection and unrestricted. It looks like your preference is limited text selection. That's what we're going to be seeing today. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why that is your preference?
Okay, limited text selection is kind of trying to mimic older style this other run before a few major glitches were found. Mostly two big ones and then a few like smaller ones around, just like cage clipping and all that. But the general idea was to get rid of skips that would skip major parts of the levels, and those two like tricks that we got rid of were bot boosting, which is a kind of like weird way of like tricking the game about positioning and like gaining a bunch of speed by doing some like funky stuff with getting damage frames and a bunch of weird jargon that's just a lot to explain without actually being able to show someone. But yeah, that you can do some pretty major skips with that. And then also Power and Flight, which is a little more specific to Rose. I don't remember whether they use it much in Chaotix, but it's also possible there, where we kind of use the belly flop mechanic that those characters have, that the power characters have, to be able to fly through the air at speeds and just skip parts of levels again. So yeah, those tricks were gotten rid of, and LTS is basically trying to mimic more of the older runs, going through the entire level, trying to optimize your movement for that. And it's a lot more beginner friendly, and again, it is very movement based, and I do much more enjoy that compared to a skip where it's like you get it or you don't and you lose the run kind of thing, because bob boosting and power and flight are very hard tricks. So yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. So your incentive for this run is which like main category will be running, right? Like Team Sonic versus Team Rose. Without giving us your preference, can you explain the differences between the two?
All right. Team Sonic and is the longer category. It's a lot more different than Rose and because Sonic and Amy's move sets are radically different, and as long as with the other characters. I guess not with the flight characters because they don't really change much, but otherwise, and that makes for a lot of different like movement that comes with that. And Sonic stages are a lot longer, and the tricks in Sonic will lose you a lot more time if you fail them because of just how long the stages are, how spread out the actual checkpoints are from each other because of how big the stages are. But Rose also is very, very difficult in the sense of like trying to have like speed in that because Sonic has a move set that better accentuates like going fast. Amy has a lot of stuff where it's like you can go fast with it, but the game will try to stop you, kind of thing. It'll make more sense when we get into the run, but yeah, kind of, Amy kind of doesn't go fast. And also one like very major difference is that there's a tutorial level right at the start known as Seagate, and that's only for Rose. No other team has to do it, and it's really difficult. Lots of text mashing. It's hard to actually like get through the stage properly. So it's very different, but yeah, they're they're just really different categories.
Okay. Well, Mew, whichever team wins this bid war, thank you for helping us raise funds for Trans Lifeline. Chat, you literally have the power to choose which of these categories Mew runs, so please keep the donations coming. Mew, I'm excited to see the run with either team. Good luck, and from one Sonic fan to another, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Hello, Fastest Furs. I'm Rad, and I'm happy to welcome in Sabera Messia, who will be running Greek Memories of Azure later tonight. Sabera, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. So, of course, we're going to start with your speedrunning history. I am interested to know about that, but I had a quick question. I noticed the first submission on your speedrun.com profile was just after the start of the pandemic, so I have to ask, is your speedrunning interest somewhat pandemic related?
So I really got into it kind of with the pandemic. I actually started out in like 2016. No, earlier than that, 2015, running Shovel Knight low percent. And I never got good enough at that to actually submit to SRC. And eventually I like put it down for a while. But a friend of mine from college does puts on like a single stream per year, and had done some speed runs of Axiom Verge. And I was like, well, why don't I learn this speed run? And we can have a race of any percent. You know, I can probably get a time down to like around an hour, which is where he was, in the span of a year. And 4 months later, I had a sub 40. So that didn't really turn out into a race, but that's pretty much how I got started seriously speedrunning. And yeah, that was right around the pandemic.
That's very cool. I also kind of developed my interest in speedrunning in the pandemic, so that's awesome. What specifically led you to want to speedrun Greek?
Um, there were pretty much no speed runs of it. So it was kind of greenfield. Um, I played the game casually. I loved it. And then while I was fooling around with it casually, I also found some glitches, and kind of got excited about those, and was like, yes, this is definitely something that I want to invest time into and kind of build up more. And the team, like the dev team behind it, was very supportive, which also really helped a lot.
Yeah, supportive devs are like a godsend in this pastime for sure. So yeah, let's talk about the category for a minute. I know you ran any percent for Greek at GDQ recently, but at the Fall Fest you're going to be running all main quests. Can you both talk about how they differ and also why the longer category, all main quests, is the default category for the game?
Yeah, absolutely. Any percent, there's a kind of long quest line in the game that leads you to reconstruct a broken bridge, that gets you to the basically second half of the game. Um, it turns out that you can actually skip the entire first half of the quest line, because a lot of the quests that lead up to getting your second character, yeah, you get three characters in the game. This is kind of like a fusion with the Lost Vikings. Um, uh, you can get the character without actually getting those quests. One of them is supposed to enable you to actually get her out of where you find her, but with a glitch, you can get her out anyway. And then she has the capability to just jump over that bridge, with very, very precise movement. And the game is extremely tolerant of that. You can just kind of move on with your life at that point and like keep playing. Um, all main quests disallows that. You actually have to complete the entire main quest line, which includes reconstructing that bridge. This actually introduces more glitches into the run rather than fewer, which is kind of funny. The main reason why the longer category is the main category for that one, the default category, is just because the community likes all main quests better. Right, like Super Metroid, the shortest category is any percent, but any percent with glitches is like 2 minutes long, and that's not that interesting. So, any percent, glitchless is the default category there. I guess it's not exactly glitches, but glitchless, but
Right.
you get it.
Hmm.
So that's why.
So we get to see the default category. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I did take a look at your GDQ run of any percent, and I know you mentioned routing some stuff in and discovering some stuff just last minute. Generally, in speedrunning, do you prefer routing or running existing routes?
I am a router, through and through. I've rerouted Axiom Verge 100%. And I hold world record in that category by like 5 minutes now. Um, Deedlit, Record of Lodoss War, Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth. I run the community for that, and I was really involved in the routing of that speed run. It's a lot of what drew me to it. And Greek, like I said, was this greenfield game. Nobody else was running it. And so I got to discover all of these glitches, and all of these routing choices. And, it's a very small community. So, everyone was kind of just like really, everybody has had some contribution into it. But, being able to kind of like helm that was a lot of what drew me to it.
Okay. Well, finally, I'd like to zoom out just a little bit and ask what drew you to Fastest Furs? Why did you submit for the run?
So I have kind of been orbiting the Fastest Furs community for a couple of years now. Fastest Furs, Fall Fest 2020, I think was actually one of the first marathons I ever submitted to. And at that point in time, like, I was looking for marathons to submit to, and this came up. And I was like, oh, it's a good cause. It says you don't have to be a furry to submit. um, and As a result of submitting to that marathon, I met just like tons of cool people. I got to be really good friends with Blaze, Moonblaze Wolf, for the audience out there, and have kept coming back. But this year, this marathon in particular, I am trans myself, and raising for causes that benefit people like me who need it, it's very close to my heart. So, I'm really excited in particular to be here with all of you this time.
Well, we're excited to have you. Sabera, thank you so much for helping us raise money for Trans Lifeline and taking the time to answer my questions. Chat, please keep the donations coming. You do not want to miss the incentive for this run, a special glitch exhibition. Sabera, good luck on the run. Thank you again. I'm excited to see it.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me. I'm really excited to show it off.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rad, and I'm here with the one, the only, Moonblaze Wolf. In addition to being the lead event producer for Fastest Furs, Blaze will also be running Final Fantasy X Any% in just a little bit. Welcome, Blaze, and thanks for joining me this morning.
Yeah, thank you for doing the interview with me.
Of course. So let's dive right in. You have a very interesting speedrunning history, so I want to hear, how did you get into speedrunning, and where does FF10 fit in?
Yeah, so they're actually really related. I've always been a big Final Fantasy and JRPG fan just in general, all growing up. And how I got into speedrunning was my younger brother, who has not been a runner or volunteer with us before, but he is in the community. His name is Hotbot. And he turned me on to the Final Fantasy IV randomizer back in 2018, free enterprise. So that was kind of like my gateway into speedrunning, so to speak, was playing randomizer. But I've never actually ran a mainline Final Fantasy game before. So one of my 2022 New Year's resolutions was I wanted to learn a mainline Final Fantasy speedrun, like the vanilla version, not randomized for once. And Final Fantasy X was pretty high on my list. And as I was kind of doing some research and looking into it more, there was a lot of developments in the Final Fantasy X speedrun, including RNG tracking, which I'm sure we're going to talk about during the interview, and the cutscene remover, which came out and really made it a lot more feasible to practice on like a regular basis. So it's kind of been my main jam this year, off and on, and I'm really happy that I get to show it off here at Fastest Furs.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see it. So you mentioned the cutscene remover. I mean, this is a mainline Final Fantasy game. It's multi-hours, and even with the cutscene remover, we're talking about 3 to 4 hours, right, in that range. Tell me, like, how execution heavy is it? How much do you go from a lot of attention to kind of like autopiloting and back, or is it kind of even throughout?
Yeah, so like the interesting thing about the run is it's pretty much just like nonstop action because of the cutscene remover. So what it does is you have all of the core gameplay of Final Fantasy X. Every time that you are controlling the main character on screen, all of that is retained in the speedrun for the like 99.9% of it. And it's just all this extra stuff removed, and it drops the time per the run by over 5 hours. So it's really just like action packed. We're going to play the whole game and just not get a lot of the filler that kind of, you know, in traditional JRPG fashion really kind of lengthens it out and sort of tells the backstory of the game and the characters and all that. So
Yeah, so that seems like that would kind of up the ante for your attention span. How do you keep track of everything you're trying to keep in mind as you're running without cutscenes?
yeah, so it's actually pretty intense, and you have to do a lot of it like on the fly during the little bits of downtime that you have during the run. And one of the sort of backwards things about the cutscene remover is it actually makes it a lot harder to execute well, because with all of the RNG tracking that I'm going to be doing, if I was doing it in a normal run without the cutscene remover, I would have hours and hours of time where I would just be holding down a button or waiting for a cutscene, where I could, you know, analyze the patterns, or I could do hypotheticals, or even just keep up with the data entry piece of it. And during the cutscene remover run, you really don't get a lot of that downtime. So I'm going to be doing a lot of it during the little bits that I do have, or maybe just kind of while I'm running from screen to screen if possible. And yeah, just keeping track of the things I need to keep track of to hopefully make sure that the run goes the way that I want it to.
Well, speaking of keeping track of a lot of things, you are involved in a lot of speedrunning events. From Fastest Furs, I know just a few, Midwest Speed Fest, I think GDQ. I know some of our staff are involved in GDQ. Tell me a little bit about that and like how Fastest Furs fits into all of that.
Yeah, so I kind of came up with the idea of a furry speedrunning group in conjunction with getting involved in a lot of these other communities, including one that I think a few less people know about, called the RPG Valkyries, which is a all-female or female-identifying speedrunning group. And it really sort of gave me the idea, being involved with their community, that there was a place on Twitch and in speedrunning for kind of like identity-based speedrunning communities. and we just decided to start Fastest Furs after kind of talking with some of the furry speedrunners that are out there and meeting Shockwave at Summer Games Done Quick 2019. We just kind of put the plan in motion, and we decided to sort of see how it would go. And I've been just constantly overjoyed with the amount of talent that exists specifically in the furry speedrunning community, but also just the willingness of the greater speedrunning community as a whole to get behind what we're doing, help us promote our events, embrace the work that we're doing, and just really the rising tide is sort of lifting all boats at the same time. And I just feel like all of these community-driven speedrunning events are incredible these days, and you can basically tune into Twitch any given weekend and watch a fantastic speedrunning marathon, including this one.
So quickly, I mean, it's right there in the name, Fastest Furs. What is there to this intersection of furry and speedrunning?
I've never quite gotten. I don't know if there is an answer to this, but I think a lot of the reasons that furry is so important to a lot of people who might be marginalized or might be let's just say not the cool kid at the table. I think a lot of that applies to speedrunners as well. Speedrunning is inherently an online-based community. It is inherently something that is very intrinsic in terms of the value that people get out of it, and the way that allows people to express themselves. Nobody is going to win the prize for best speedrunner. Like, we all just sort of do the things that we love and the things that we enjoy. And if you sort of look at furry and why furry is so appealing to a lot of people, I think you see a lot of commonality and intersectionality there. It just really draws in people who want to have a hobby or something that is very important to them. It kind of defines them in a way, and it allows them a form of expression that maybe they don't get to do out kind of wandering in their normal everyday lives. So I think there's a lot in common there.
I can relate to almost all of that, but I mean, I am the cool kid in the room, so I don't know what you're saying. So we are running short on time. Tell me, why are we watching a cutscene? Why do we have an incentive to watch a cutscene for this run?
Yeah, so we are going to watch one cutscene, assuming that the donations get in for it, and this is the famous laughing cutscene, which I think most people know. If not, hopefully you get a chance to get acquainted with it during the run. But basically, it's about an hour into the run. It is kind of a very important moment in the story where there's trust building between the two main characters, Titus and Yuna, and this whole guardian sort of relationship that they have. And there's something just unique about it. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit out of the ordinary. And they just kind of get along really, really well. And they trust each other in kind of quirky ways. So I think the actual cutscene itself gets a lot of flack because the laughing itself is very bizarre, and I think some of that is deliberate, but also it's this game was one of the earliest fully voice acted games that was out there. So I think that the actual sort of laughing itself is very memorable to people, but if you kind of dig a little bit deeper than that, it's a really important moment in the story where they develop this really deep bond and level of trust with each other. So it's a little bit silly, but it's also very special and meaningful to a lot of people who are familiar with the game.
I appreciate the nuance of that cutscene. The lack of nuance around that cutscene has always driven me crazy. So I'm with you there. So
yeah.
Blaze, thank you so much for getting up early this morning, for providing such an awesome platform to raise money for Trans Lifeline and share the excitement of speedrunning. Chat, remember, there are bid wars open for the names of the main character and 3 of the summons in addition to this cutscene incentive, so please keep those donations coming. On a personal note, thank you, Blaze, for providing a platform someone like me can onboard to speedrunning events, this community, and even volunteering. Much appreciated. Good luck on the run, and thanks again for joining me.
Absolutely. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of the marathon and trans rights.
Hey everyone, I'm Still Rad, and I have here with me Demonic Robots, who will be running Mass Effect 2 later tonight. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining.
Hey, thank you for having me here.
Of course. So of course I checked out your speedrun.com profile, and wow, over 100 runs, and I stopped counting how many games were on that list. How did you get into speedrunning, and where does Mass Effect 2 kind of fit into that timeline?
Yeah, sure. So I first heard about speedrunning in about like 2016, 2015. So a long time ago, at a Friday night Magic the Gathering event where somebody who I was talking with mentioned Pokemon Yellow speedrunning. And I looked into speedrunning a little bit, but Pokemon wasn't really my thing, and that was kind of the only thing I knew about. So I didn't really get too far into it. A couple of years later, I was really interested in a game called Remothered, which was inspired by the Clock Tower series, which is a horror franchise that I'm a huge fan of. And I, did some research and I found another speedrunner, like Dices, who has been a pretty big inspiration, and that kind of reignited my interest in speedrunning. And then I just kind of started speedrunning and doing games and branching off and meeting new people, which would get me interested in their games. So I would start doing those ones and branch off and so on and so forth. So yeah, I've done a whole lot of games because of that, just from all the people that I've met and all that jazz. And I eventually ended up with Mass Effect 2 because I was watching a good friend of mine, Mike Wave, great guy, and he made the run look really fun. And at the time, I've never played any Mass Effect game. Like I don't know anything about the story at the time. I didn't know anything, but the run looked so fun that I just had to play through the entire trilogy and start running the game because of that.
Wow, that's really cool. So you came to the speed game before the casual game.
Yeah, which is very rare for Mass Effect, such a beloved franchise. And I do love the game. I did play them casually before I started the speed run. And I really enjoy the story of that one, especially Mass Effect 2. So that kind of helped that, even though I saw the speed run first, I enjoyed the casual part of the game. So that kind of helped me actually get into the game and the speed run and start, doing it.
Awesome. Okay, well, your default category submission was any percent New Game Plus, but you have an incentive to upgrade it to No One Left Behind. Both are New Game Plus, but can you talk about a little bit about how the incentive run No One Left Behind kind of deviates, and what might be different about seeing that versus any percent?
Yeah, sure. So any percent is the typical any percent complete the game with no restrictions outside of New Game Plus, which is the category that I do. That just makes it so you don't have to, spend a couple of extra seconds getting some of the, upgrades that don't really change the run a whole lot. So there's not that big of a difference. It just kind of gets rid of some of the inconveniences. And then we also allow DLC, which gives us the access to the DLC characters as well as some DLC weapons. So it just makes it, again, slightly easier, slightly more consistent. No One Left Behind essentially is the best ending category, and any percent is the worst ending category. Because the way that the game works, if you guys don't know, I won't spoil a little too much of it, but a lot of your decisions affect your companions, whether or not they live or die. That's a big part of the game, and that's the entire thing. And the entire story is you are supposed to be prepping for the suicide mission to defeat the bad guys. And in the any percent, we do the bare minimum. We do the quickest missions. We do the lowest amount of missions. We do literally just the bare amount of everything. So typically what this means is, because it's an 80% run, everyone dies. Everyone, all the beloved characters of the series pretty much just get wiped. No One Left Behind is a little bit more positive. It's essentially the same run for the first 30 minutes or so. And after that, we will start to do the bare minimum to keep everybody alive and essentially get the best ending. So we have to get some new companions that we don't normally get in any percent. We have to do some what are called loyalty missions to gain our companions' loyalty. They're basically like little stories following those characters. And we need to make certain decisions in order to make sure that everybody lives. So even though it's only a few minutes of a difference, it's slightly longer. That is because the way that the game works is it's in a mission order. So you need to do, we'll say 10 missions before the end of the game. We still do 10 missions, but we just do different missions than what we did before. So the loyalty missions are all really fun. A good majority of them are actually really good. They have their own movement tech, or not movement tech and skips and all that stuff. So it's definitely a very different category, despite the estimate time being pretty close together.
Awesome. So, Chad, you know what to do. Let's get those donations in to make sure no one is left behind.
It's definitely worth it because we can't skip certain cutscenes. in the game, you do get to see a lot of your favorite characters get killed, which isn't fun, especially if you are a huge fan of the series. But yeah, unfortunately, with the timing methods, we use a speedrun mod, and that does mean that we do have to see some companions bite the dust.
All right. Well, I noticed across the categories you run in Mass Effect 2, there's a couple runners that are kind of cemented in position 1 and 2 in those boards. Are you going to make a push for those positions in the future?
I never actually plan on it. Typically, the way that I approach speed runs is I'm trying to improve my own time, and I'm trying to improve myself and make, small incremental improvements into the games that I'm working on. I used to have that idea of like, oh yeah, I want to try and get top 10 or world record or anything like that. And I found that it would create more frustration, which would in turn make it harder to actually get those times. So eventually I just said, all right, I just want to focus and then just improve myself and improve my time. And I think that mentality definitely helped me out a lot with a lot of other games where I eventually did get world record in them, almost accidentally. I don't want to say, just like by complete accident out of the blue, but, it wasn't something where I was like hyper focused on doing it. So I think that helped. But definitely not playing that with Mike Wave and Sanjin. They are both absolutely insane at the game and super, super dedicated. I think Mike has about 2,000 hours in the game, so he has 1,800 over me, and Sanjin is probably very close as well. But no, they're two very cool people, very, very helpful and a big inspiration. But I'm pretty happy with my top 3 spot, especially I think that I have a pretty good time, even though there's that huge gap. And, you never know. Maybe I will get that second or first place eventually, but I would expect them to almost immediately come back to beat it.
That sounds super intimidating, but I think your approach is really healthy. Okay, well, before we go, which Shepard should win the bid war?
The community favorite and the one that wins almost every time is FemShep, which I like FemShep a whole lot. But I do feel after a couple of marathon events of not seeing Bro Shep, I would like to play him. So both would be good, but I'm leaning towards Bro Shep just because he doesn't get as much love as he deserves.
Okay. Well, we'll have to see. Chat, let's keep those donations coming so we make sure no one's left behind and we get your favorite character in the run. Demonic, thank you so much for helping raise money for Trans Lifeline. It's very cool to have had you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Hello again, everyone. Rad here, and it is my pleasure to have with me Lori D. Bunnykins, who will be closing out the Fall Fest with Splatoon 3. Welcome, Lori, and thanks for joining me.
No problem. I'm very excited to close. I've done so many marathons, and I've never closed. So I'm very happy that like the people I worked with on games were like thought I would be good to close.
It is very exciting to do that. Yeah, I think you're going to do great. So my first question is, of course, how did you get into speedrunning and why Splatoon 3?
So speedrunning itself, I grew up a huge fan of like Let's Plays on YouTube. And there was this one set of videos I really liked that was these four Let's Players doing a race of Zelda 1. And I thought I was pretty good at it because I could beat Zelda 1 in like an hour and a half. And then in my recommended in like mid-2013, I got an AGDQ VOD of Zelda 1, and it blew my mind. And that's really when I wanted to start speedrunning. And I've always like looked at games that I saw on GDQ and thought were cool. So Splatoon, I was a big fan. I've been a big fan of Nintendo forever. I initially wasn't interested in it at all when it came out. But then AGDQ 2016 opened with Splatoon, and I thought that run was sick. So I bought one of Nintendo's biggest multiplayer experiments just to try speedrunning the single player mode of it. But I eventually just fell in love with the whole series, really.
That's awesome. How does it feel to run a game that has been recently released? Like Splatoon's only been out for a few months, right?
Yeah, Splatoon 3 came out on September 9th. So by today, the day I'm doing the run, it's going to be just over 2 months. This is far from my first time running a game that's very new. I've a lot of Switch games, actually, like Splatoon 2, Mario Odyssey, games like that, Kirby Star Allies are all games I've run within the first week. I think it's very interesting because I'm not much of the strat finder type person. So I always try and like get solid at what's found, and then new things keep getting found. So it's very hard for me, who's kind of like a big like practice grinder, to suddenly have new things to practice every day. But it's also very exhilarating and like a fun experience.
Are there any specific things you learned like early on for Splatoon 3 that you're like, they're just gone now?
Yeah, so because of how many overworld skips there are now that skip egg barriers, we don't need to collect as many eggs, which means we don't need to play as many levels. And there were these levels that I really liked that there, depending on the route you ran, you would do up to 3 of them in the run, where you would use what's in the game called the Zipcaster, which basically just gives you a Spider-Man arm. And those levels were super fun. I love the Spider-Man arm. And my main weapon in the multiplayer has the Spider-Man arm as the special. But it's just not in the run anymore because we've just found too many skips that we don't need to do those levels.
Okay, so tonight the run has 1 bid war for Inkling versus Octoling and 1 incentive for a bonus level after Alterna. I won't have you weigh in on which species selection you'd prefer. We'll keep it legit, but can you tell me a little bit about the bonus level?
So the bonus level is kind of reminiscent to, for those that have played like Mario 3D World, Champions Road, which is to say it's a post-game gauntlet split into like sections that are all very long. The checkpoints are very minimal, and it's very notoriously difficult. For the first like month of Splatoon 3, if you searched Twitter for After Alterna, you would find rage. I've had friends who have legitimately come to me and like let me log into their Nintendo account so I could beat the level for them, if that says anything. It's a very difficult level, but just like a lot of kind of gauntlet levels, I tend to get really good at them once I just kind of sit down and play them for an hour. So I think it'll be a really fun showcase because it's this level that I know so many people that have just like super struggled with, and I'm super confident that I'm going to tear it up.
I cannot wait to see it. Here's hoping, right? Chat, get those donations in. Well, Lori, you mentioned you were closing out the Fall Fest, and you have been a volunteer with Fastest Furs for a while. What does Fastest Furs mean to you?
In a word, everything. In a much longer set of words, it's been absolutely incredible. I'm very presentative, and I guess that's a good way to put it. If you've seen like any of my schedule reveals, I seem very like out there, but socially I'm a lot shyer than that. So it's been really nice to consistently be part of a group like this that just like does what it does out of love for the community. Because I super worry with like how shy I get sometimes that I don't like really get to talk about how much I appreciate a lot of the people I talk to. And I think doing this is just a great way to give to that community.
I will say from personal experience, I was not prepared for the reveal streams, and it was one of the most pleasant surprises from working with this community. So thanks for the work you put into that. It's excellent.
And the first time we ever did it, I was like, maybe I put together this slideshow because, again, I'm very theatrical. And I was like, maybe I'll slip in a little jokes, like a few jokes. And a lot of people really like those jokes. So I've just kind of started descending more into, like, how silly can I make this? And they've become one of my favorite things to do.
Well, I will be one to continue to encourage it. Well, Lori, thank you so much for helping us raise money for Trans Lifeline and honestly being an integral part of this community. Chat, make sure let's get those donations in for that bonus level and our character species. That's it for me. I'll see you all in chat. Lori, I'm excited to see the run, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much.